Greetings, everybody. Nina the Mystic here, and welcome to another Sunday Live. Well, this week we have a very special guest. Her name is Laura Eisenhower. And yes, she is related to the former President Eisenhower. Matter of fact, she is the granddaughter of the former president. So she is well known in the community, and I'm sure most of you have heard of Laura. Okay, I didn't bring her big bio here because I didn't think we needed it, as I'm sure everybody kind of knows who she is. But she's big in the community. I've been following her for quite a while, and I am very pleased to say that I have her on the show. And so if you don't mind, before I bring her on, to make sure that you are hitting that like, sharing it out to a couple places, okay? And I'm going to bring her on, and she'll introduce herself, and we'll talk a bit, and then I'll leave it up for questions, okay? So while you guys are sitting there, make sure maybe bring a pen and paper, dart down some questions so that you have it ready for when we get to that section of the show. Okay, so not right now, but once we get there, okay, have questions for her, maybe all caps, so that we can see that that is for Laura. Okay, so I am going to bring her on. Laura, I don't know if you're ready, but I have your thing on here. Let's see if I can. There she is. Hi, Laura. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Nina?
I'm good, thank you. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Great to be here. I just want to correct, it's great grandfather.
Great grandfather. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? So I'm sure that my audience know very well who you are and your bio and all that. But if you don't mind, just telling them a little synopsis about who you are and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I just been a lifelong researcher, very mission oriented since I was a child, and have had my own experiences on top of just researching a lot of things. I do medical astrology readings, intuitive readings for people, and I've had a pretty vast clientele over the years, which has validated a lot of the things that I've researched. People that have, gone through MK Ultra programs or things like satanic ritual abuse, and who have been a part of some of these things that I think are hard for people to swallow. But yeah, working with clients over the years has really just taught me a lot and shown me a lot. I've been a public speaker for about the last 10 years. I was also recruited to go off planet in 2006, which I refused to do. And it gave me a lot of background and insight into a lot of the hidden things taking place within the shadow government and hidden levels of the shadow government connected to MJ12 that are linked to alien technology. And I've also been able to exonerate Eisenhower of a lot of the blame that he's received as far as selling us out to the Greys. And that has been some of my more recent research that I'll be making more public in the years to come. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, so the one thing that kind of, right away when I saw you, I can't remember when I first saw you now. It was a few years ago. I mean, you kind of came onto the scene. It's almost like you were kind of like a bit shy in the beginning. You were kind of like not sure about coming out, and then you finally did. And now you've been out there for probably a decade or so, right? Yeah, the whole recruiting to Mars. So like, what does that look like? Like, how does one get recruited to go to Mars?
Well, they set me up with somebody who I didn't know was set up. I thought I was just meeting somebody who had a plan to go to Mars. I thought that I would have an easy time just saying I'm not interested, and maybe just convincing that person that I didn't want to go, but maybe, we could still be in some kind of relationship. I just didn't know how that was all going to look or play out. I didn't realize how secretive it was. I didn't realize what it was really connected to. And I just learned a lot along the way. And he disclosed to me that he was sent specifically to bring me in. It seemed like he was under some sort of control because he would get phone calls and then disappear for days without remembering where he went. I really learned the term handlers and what altars are all about. I had heard of it before, like in movies. I didn't have a handler. I wasn't in those projects or programs, but I was targeted. And the targeting began when I was a child to steer me down a timeline I didn't want to go down. And they wanted to use my heart as bait instead of my mind because they couldn't mind control me. I wasn't a part of those projects. I hadn't been MyLabbed. Maybe they did a try, but it didn't kind of work, but it worked on him. And I don't know if it depends on certain factors. That might have happened in a past life. I'm not sure. But Yeah, so he met me at a festival that I was just going to and just struck up a conversation with me. And I just thought I was meeting this person in an organic way. And then I came to find out that they used looking glass technologies to locate us in a previous lifetime to make sure that I already had familiarity with him and some sort of an affinity. But it was really, they were using him as bait. Some refer to the term as a honey trap, where they set you up with a plant who's under their control or mind control. But he did have an organic side that seemed to be able to see through this and try and warn me. But then he would just come back to just being under their control. At the times that he did attempt to warn me after we had an established relationship, he would make sure that all the electronics were unplugged and that the computer batteries and phone batteries were unplugged because he said we were being followed and we were being, what do you call it? Our phones were tapped. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot to kind of get out of. And the whole idea was to be permanent colonists on Mars at a secret Mars colony. And that somehow I had been chosen. But I didn't get the full truth of it all till I was with him for a certain amount of time. And I made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't interested in going. But again, I thought this was something that was going to happen a long time from now, that the public would have known about it. And I realized it was a hidden sort of operation that was going to be kept secret. And I decided to blow the whistle and expose this to humanity because I felt that we didn't need to evacuate the Earth because it was presented to me that it was in the case of, or in the event that there was going to be some sort of huge cataclysms or Armageddon scenario, which they are trying to engineer. But back then I knew that they had dark technologies that could create artificial timelines and engineer disaster scenarios through things like geoengineering and be able to create superstorms through like HARP and the chemtrail agenda and geoengineering and just the manipulation of humans through 5G, through the stuff we've been inhaling, the stuff that's infected our food, and of course, that we might inject ourselves with. Doesn't mean it's all doom or gloom if you have, folks. But I just decided to expose that kind of stuff so that we could claim our power back and our sovereignty, so that we could overcome these tactics and experience true organic ascension. And that's what I've been doing and what I've been sharing about in my presentations, which also included sharing some of these stories and some of the more negative to then open up the solution and the good news, because it's not all bad. That's a big catalyst for our awakening in many ways.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching your stuff and I'm very fascinated. I do resonate with a lot of it. And I got one question though, like, do you know how they would get you up there?
They mentioned ARCs, ARC, and that's some sort of, it's not teleportation like Andrew Bashago and some others that were in these projects like Project Pegasus used, as he was a child participant and sort of used as a guinea pig to use teleportation to teleport to places like Mars. And they utilized time traveled him back to like the times of Gettysburg Address and other events. And they weren't really talking about that kind of technology, but they might have used it. I think I overheard some conversations. That's all I could really do is overhear things and notice the names of the people that he was talking to that I didn't have direct contact with. But you can Google the aviary who's connected to MJ12. If you look up John Alexander and the aviary and you Google it, you'll find out more about what these individuals were up to. But they use the term ARC as the vehicle, maybe some sort of spacecraft that we would have used. And it's an acronym, I believe, ARC, but there's also ARCs that are considered to be some sort of craft that's some sort of advanced technology. I never saw them. I never went to Mars. I was never in one. All I could do is pay attention to what I was overhearing. I think a lot of conversations I wasn't supposed to hear. They talked about terraforming Mars. They talked about hidden colonies that used to be ancient, connected to ancient civilizations and underground bases that they sort of refurbished to be able to house people in these underground systems because life on Mars isn't so hospitable. But they were planning on terraforming. And some of it sounded benevolent, like well-intended to protect the human genome. But because that group had a lot of compartmentalism, they were able to use individuals that were well-intentioned and convince them that this was a good idea. When I researched some of the characters that he brought up, and they're connected to Black Ops, My Labs, artificial telepathy, and some of them are known disinfo agents like Richard Doty. So I knew that he wasn't really dealing with individuals that have our best interests at heart, but they weren't telling him that. They convinced him that what he was doing was a good thing. And I questioned all of it. And when I found out that I was correct in my intuition when they later came out with a website describing who these individuals were. It was sort of a big sigh of relief because you just never know, like, am I making the right decision? But I knew, because I was prepared for this mission as a child, that it didn't include leaving the planet and going to Mars. And I was sort of prepared and assisted by spirit guides. And my great grandfather, he used to sort of appear to me to really like make sure, when this event takes place and they try and drag you off planet, that absolutely refuse to be taken anywhere. I don't know how much I needed the warning though, but I'm glad that I did have some sort of support as a child. So that helped.
Yeah, it's come to my attention anyways that I don't believe that we actually went to the moon. It seems like that's all, hoax.
There are lunar bases. There is activity on the moon, but everything that NASA has presented as far as moon landings is very much a cover up. But there is activity on the moon connected to lunar bases, and a lot of individuals that go to the 20 and back and secret space programs do a lot of their training at some of the lunar bases on the dark side of the moon, is what I've heard and what they've told me. But yeah, the lunar landings, I feel were just theater and a total facade.
Well, the guy, there was this guy, I can't remember his name now, that director that came out and said that he had filmed it all. Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick.
And even Buzz Aldrin kind of admitted to this kid, he's like, well, we haven't quite been there, So, seems like, so that's why I was curious, like, so how is Musk fit in here? Like, does he have anything to do with the Mars thing, or is that just some?
I think, there's separate things, projects and programs.
Yeah.
And I've heard, a lot of people have a lot of confidence in him, but some individuals that have been a part of the MK Ultra programs and ritual abuse that have been born into these families say that he is not completely free of all of it, and that he presents himself as being a pretty benevolent person, but he's been very involved in these sort of things. I don't know, maybe he was able to break free like some of them. I don't have any proof of that. He seems okay sometimes and sometimes very questionable. But I think that the Mars projects that he's associated with are very different. They've been more put out to the public. Maybe it's because the timing is such and it is connected, but I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I can't quite figure him out either. It's some things he does. It seems like, oh, this will be good. That the whole Twitter thing with, the bots and everything, that sounds good. But then that all fizzle out too. And, and having that much money kind of makes you question, like, who is he really working for? Right. So, yeah, you tend to get a little jaded after a while with all this, when you follow the money, right? Follow the money. That's what they keep saying, So, and that's kind of like with Trump too. It's kind of like, oh, he seems like he's kind of a good guy, but then again, he's got all his money and all his, so you just don't know, exactly. Like, I definitely not putting any, money on it, but, it's very interesting, that whole thing now. So I was telling my kids the other day, I'm like, yeah, I got Laura Eisenhower coming on. And, she talks about being recruited to Mars. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. And they're, well, check it out, Siri. So you go to Siri, and you punch in how many humans are living on Mars. And it actually comes out with an answer. There's 100 and something people up on there. So, it's kind of like it's in your face. In a sense, right? They're very open about what's going on, but at the same time, they're not. So
I think there's way more than that number. I've heard that there's 5 different underground colonies that are being guarded by some of the people that have been in these projects and programs. I think there's the public version that we hear, and there's a lot more to it than what we're going to hear, even through asking Alexa or Siri.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of people that go missing every year. So where do they go? I mean, I'm sure some of them probably do go off planet, maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and one has to wonder too that some of these are simulated realities. Some of these individuals that say that they have gone off planet, they also talk about being given, cameras and having virtual reality experiences. So who's to say if it was simulated or if it's actually real? I think there's a bit of both. And I think there's a little bit of confusion as far as people that have gone through it. But I think legitimately people have been going to off-planet destinations. Why not? I mean, we're pretty advanced in our technology that we just don't have access to here as humans. But in the multi-level secret space programs, they have incredibly advanced technology. People view UFOs all the time. People have contact experiences. There's underground cities on Venus and other locations. There's bases on Jupiter, Saturn, and the Ceres colony where Tony Rodriguez spent some of his time, and the lunar bases. So one has to have an open mind to it, but also there might be the simulated realities where they do some training before they actually go to the physical planet. I think it's still remained to be seen. The best thing is that we're just able to have an open up mind to be a part of these bigger conversations until we get some answers. And I think some have come very close to the truth. Like Tony Rodriguez just wrote a book about his experiences, and he's got really powerful memories. So I don't doubt what they have to share. But yeah, it's hard to know what these technologies are capable of and how much is a simulated reality versus the actual planet. I haven't read the whole book yet, but I recommend that people look into Tony Rodriguez. I feel like he's one of the most legitimate whistleblowers of the secret space programs who had a 20 and back, which basically means that you serve for 20 years and you come back like nothing happened while you aged and served for 20 years, but then you age regress. And they have those kind of technologies. I know a number of people that have been age regressed, and they basically put you in a room and you slowly reverse time, and you can go from like 40 years old back to your 20s or late teenage years based on using age reversal technology. And a lot of people have talked about that. I've never experienced any of that. I wasn't in these projects or programs. I don't have direct proof, but I have listened to these stories and gotten to know these individuals who are my friends and colleagues. And that's part of what the 20 and back is all about. Also, Rebecca Rose. And so Michael Salla is a really incredible researcher on this stuff. He's written a ton of books. That's a really good resource for people, on top of the real actual stories of folks like Tony Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I had a Illuminati, I guess, whistleblower or whatever you want to call it on my show a couple of Sundays ago. And he seems to think that it's all just MK Ultra, like they were, the VR thing that they actually didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, if you talk to somebody that said that, I wouldn't doubt it. Again, It might be a mixed bag. A lot of the people that have broken the MK Ultra program are saying this, but who knows? Because there's many, many layers, many, many alters. They mind wipe you. They're able to implant memories as well. I just don't doubt folks like Tony Rodriguez, but I think he has to consider that as well. And he's admitted that. He's coming as close to the truth as he possibly can. Whereas others that are still under the control or the MK Ultra are not going to be able to admit that. They're not.
Yeah,
admit that.
Yeah, I'm sure that whoever, are saying this, that they generally feel that that's what happened to them. Like this was an experience, so I have no doubt about that.
Right.
But, right, you just they probably don't even know, was this real or was this something else, so yeah, it's very interesting for sure.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just going to put that.
Yeah. So, I've obviously been watching you for a while, and just lately I've been noticing that you're, what is your lookout for humanity coming up? Like, it seems like not that you've been down, but it seems anxious. I think we're all kind of feeling this anxious kind of feeling. Something is about to happen. Like, but then again, we've been saying it for a while, and it's kind of getting like, oh, like, what do you see coming forward
I'm
here?
not much into predictions. I really feel we're not all headed in the same place. Eventually, yes. I mean, we all return to source, the unconditional love of the creator. I don't feel any soul is left behind, but we're not all moving at the same speed. We're not necessarily on the same timeline or trajectory. Eventually, I believe so. I'm not really feeling anxiousness. I feel really encouraged. I think I go in and out of it depending. There's a lot of trolls, a lot of attacks, and some of that has subsided just because I'm just shielding myself a lot more and just really making sure that I just invoke the protection, and I'm just really taking good care of myself. I'm deleting as quickly as I can anything like that. I mean, people talk about solar events, solar flash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so much waiting on anything though, or thinking of predictions as much as I feel we need to all just work on ourselves. We ultimately have to win the war on consciousness within ourselves and cut the cords and any kind of dependency to the matrix, which is vampiric, and relying on our life force to feed on. And it feeds on us when we give our power away and we allow our belief systems to be infected by the propaganda and all the fear tactics. So I look at it metaphorically like one would be breaking up with a narcissist or abuser. You have to cut the cords completely, or that person's really not going to leave you alone. They might just harass you indefinitely. There might be long and drawn out battles and struggles. There might still be some kind of attachment because abusive behavior, being taken for granted or being deceived or lied to, if you're not fully aware of it and you're being taken for granted or you're being used and abused and manipulated, you're not going to realize how unconsciously you're still linked into some level of connection. So we have to consciously and mindfully completely unplug without the fear, without the survival, knowing that there's something much greater here to tap into. The resources within ourselves, our greater potential as humans, in our dormant DNA that we need to switch on. Switching on also the aspects of our brain that we haven't really opened up to because it's been unconscious or dormant, and really understand that we're advancing ourselves as humans and we're the most advanced technology that can override things like 5G and some of these dark technologies, which are based in reversals that are trying to keep us in a low vibration of fear and divide and conquer, where we're all pitted against each other. We're not embracing unity consciousness. We're not looking to build community on a local level. We're not working on ourselves or our partnerships. And that's really where our attention needs to go. And knowing that we're abundant and we're not dependent on the system, and that we can work together in communities in order to support one another and pull together our talents and skills and resources in order to build a new experience for ourselves that some might call a new earth, but it's really always been there right under our nose. It's just the true earth and our true soul nature and our truth as sovereign, authentic beings. And what's new is that we're waking up to it, but it's certainly not new. It's just a new way of being when we realize that there's a whole world to embrace outside of what we are born into and what we've been indoctrinated into and what we've been looping in and suffering through for thousands of years through false flags and the different psyops and all the different world wars and holocausts and genocides and diseases and epidemics, which is a really disempowered humanity that is now advancing itself, realizing that we can heal and regenerate from pretty much anything and overcome and override the dark technologies and become that override frequency. So we have always that to look forward to. That's always available. But as a collective, we're moving through this dark night of the soul. But as individuals, we go through that a lot in our own personal life. And this is a time of the human race initiating itself. But they weaponize this through the tactics of using psyops based on what they understand about what's happening astrologically with some of the alignments. They want to pull us under into the shadow side of it all. The tyranny, the control, the mandates, the masking, the being in lockdown, the forcing of the jabs or the manipulation to cause people fear to make that decision. And again, don't fear if you did make that decision. There's ways to counteract all that once you wake up. But that's the inversion of the initiations that are actually available. And once we recognize that, we can free ourselves, even if we have to be under some of that rulership because of our circumstances and the fact that we have certain careers or that we can't fully remove ourselves from, or we have to wake up in a city every day. Eventually we can transition away from that. But we have to look at the higher potential that these alignments are showing, which are great initiations. And the death initiation is death, rebirth, alchemy, and transformation. They're trying to keep us lodged in the birth canal where we're in fear of death to the point of pretty much killing ourselves, which fear does. And also running the risk of being assimilated into AI and greater social engineering and mind control indoctrination. And we see our children very targeted in this so that when they grow up, they're very immersed and merged into that kind of programming. But enough star seeds have been born, enough activated children will eventually have a voice, and there's enough awakened parents that will pull their children out of the system and out of the school systems and homeschool them. And, fortunately, in a lot of communities, towns and cities, parents are standing up because they see what they're doing to our children. And a lot more parents need to be way more brave, and children need to have a voice. We need to listen to what they have to say and support the fact that a lot of these people need to be removed from being in a teacher role or being in a role of being doctor, if they're going to compromise our children and our health and well-being as adults or whoever we are, we have to remove ourselves from it and call this out, because they're being blackmailed or compromised, or they just don't realize what they're doing. And some are very well aware of it, and some are walking away and quitting their jobs, fortunately, but we need to see more of that.
Yeah, well, at least I'm in Canada here, and we're finally now, they're taking away the COVID passport at the airport, I guess, at the end of the month. So
Great.
finally, but this whole time I've basically been trapped here. I can't come or go. It just seems really ridiculous. Um, yeah. So I'm like, but it makes you wonder though, now that this is up, like what else is coming? Like there's no way they're just going to give up on this now. Like, oh, well, I guess we're done. Like what else are they planning? Like,
Well, yeah, I think they're lifting a lot and people are feeling reassured by that. But then you hear about them spraying the skies. Somebody reported, or a few have recently, that they're spraying us with vaccines over like 13 states. So if they give up in one arena, maybe because they realize it's not very effective and people are waking up and seeing through it, doesn't mean that they're not going to try and get to us some other way. So it's really important to arm ourselves with good nutrition, things that'll clear us from heavy metals, crystals and stones that will help deflect some of the dark weapons, and some of the more advanced technologies that are being released, that I will certainly expose people more to as I get people contacting me about it. Things that will reverse autoimmune, things like Lyme's, and that'll mitigate the damages of some of these bioweapons that have gotten into our systems. But nutrition is everything. There's also LifeWave patches that stimulate or activate stem cells. And I got a lot of those kind of products on my website. And that's the greatest way to armor ourselves in the face of this kind of war, is that we advance our human vessel, we protect ourselves in that kind of way. Then our bodies won't be carrying the ramifications of this level of exposure, because there's things that can purify our blood and remove heavy metals and deactivate things like chips. And, when we focus on freeing our minds, once our mind is free, our body is going to be set free as well, because it's really, if the weapons were enough, they wouldn't bother with the mind control and social engineering that we see through the false media, the fake news, and things that we see in the entertainment industry, and all those that are serving this dark agenda, that are in leadership roles, that are manipulating the masses. So as long as we free ourselves and our minds from that, and we are aligned with source energy, our own higher self, God source, whatever you want to call it, and aligned with Earth, which is an ascending planet, then our bodies stand a chance of overcoming all this. As long as they own our minds, own our belief systems, we will constantly be looping in this sort of infection of our creative channels, which means we're enabling a future that we don't really want, because we're participating, consenting, and agreeing to it by believing in it. And it doesn't mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean that we can just make it disappear with our thoughts, but we can certainly make it disappear from having it take a huge toll on our health and well-being and our future and our now, and the here and now.
Absolutely. I do believe that Mother Nature has everything that we need as far as medicine. It's all here. It's just a matter of, finding the right thing for, whatever it is that's ailing us. But was one thing I found very interesting is looking back at our history. It seems like every time they roll out a new technology, like say back in 1918, they were rolling out like the radio waves and all that. Another epidemic comes around. Everybody starts getting sick, flu-like symptoms whenever that is happening. And when you look back at every time they've introduced a new technology, we seem to have another epidemic. And so it seems like that they're kind of using that as the excuse of why we're getting sick. And so in a sense, they're grooming us. So they're getting us, our bodies, actually used to the technology. And so a lot of people are thinking that 5G that got released there right around, I believe, 20, when this latest one came out, that they're getting us, our bodies, ready for the 5G, and now it's probably even to the 6 and the 7 now, to get us ready for all this new, technology that our body's just not capable of receiving, at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we've been breathing in chemtrails. We've had our food and water disturbed by things that are pretty much poisonous to our system, and injections and how that links to it all. I feel it can be overridden though when we, like I said, remove ourselves from the false narrative, the propaganda, the false flags, and the psyops. Because to me, we're the more advanced tower. We're 5D, 6D, 7D, and beyond. So as they crank up the 5G, 6G, or whatever, that's the inversion with dark technology in order to compromise us. But they rely on us buying into these darker agendas, and the problem reaction solution, where outer authority tells us a false solution that further integrates us or merges us with this dark technology that can cause death and depopulation, but also us being genetically engineered, which keeps us from being able to be connected with our soul matrix, which just sort of makes us living zombies under some kind of trance that are easily controlled. So some y'all will not make it and it'll kill them, and others will be under their control, which means that they can listen to their devices with the kind of voice to skull, or the skull, what is it? Voice to skull technologies that will command you to do things like assassinate or harm loved ones, and just act completely out of the blue, like not like their full selves, where you literally will notice your friends and family changing before your eyes if they don't override this. But if we can upgrade in the face of all this, then we're the 5D, which relates to throat chakra, speaking truth, not spreading mind viruses through our throat and our expression, and moving into 6D, which has to do with our third eye and beyond, so that we can begin to activate our galactic chakras and our dormant DNA. So this is the war right now, a showdown of forces. We either are affected by the dark technology, or we become the more advanced technology and we are able to override it. So it really depends on the individual and where they are in their soul growth and their capacity to awaken. Once a person's awakened, these dark technologies aren't going to have as much of a hold over you, because your mind, which is the brain computer, is not linked to the artificial intelligence computer, which is dictating to us what our beliefs should be and what solutions we should embrace. When we're free of that, we are upgrading with Mother Earth, with cosmic and earthly forces and events that are here to help us to embrace this window period as a time of human advancement instead of more digression and more enslavement. So it's really up to the individual to choose what you're going to be aligning with. We're either integrating ascension signals or the AI. So each individual has it within themselves to make choices every day to pull them more and more away from it all. And again, I see it metaphorically as breaking up with an imposter and a relationship that doesn't serve you, but you have to be willing to break up with it and divorce it so that you can embrace what's really available. We see that in our own personal lives, and it's no different on a macro level.
I know. We get so complacent and used to things, it's like the devil, kind of thing, like we'll just go along with it because, well, he's comfortable, we're familiar with that, rather than trying to break out is, that's kind of what we're doing, like trying to break out of that and alert everybody, like, look, hey, everybody, the emperor's not wearing any clothes, like, look what's going on here, Now with the queen's death, I thought that was quite interesting how that happened just like right now. It kind of represents the death of the old. That's the feeling I'm getting. And now that she's kind of buried, it's like, oh, now we're on to something completely different. What do you see for the whole royal family and all that shenanigans over there?
Well, yeah, I mean, she was inevitably going to die, just like any matriarch in our own family, our mothers and grandmothers. She might have died months ago, years ago.
I was going to say, some people think she did. Yeah.
Who knows, though? I mean, nobody really has the proof. Maybe some who have been a part of these family lines that have broken some of the mind control and recovered from some of the ritual abuse would know more than anyone. And that's what some of them are saying. I do feel like metaphorically does represent the old kind of dying out. And I see sort of Lady Diana and being a part of seeding the future generations of the royals as a positive sort of rebirth or thing that is going to emerge out of the royal family, where it's not going to be the way it has been, this kind of hierarchical sort of pedestal that people put them on, when to me there's nothing really royal about them. I don't know what they do to benefit humanity. To me, they're hoarding so much wealth and they are covering up incredible crimes. They have been involved in satanic ritual abuse, pedophilia, human trafficking. I believe they're responsible for the death of Lady Diana or Princess Diana. And then we have King Charles. I don't think he's going to get very far. Everybody knows, or a lot of people know, that his best friend is one of the most well-known pedophiles in Britain, which is Jimmy Savile. And they are very linked together. I believe he's the godfather of William or Harry. And a lot of this is being exposed, but is the mainstream open enough minded to be able to look at that? As long as anybody's giving them power, or King Charles power, they exist in the timeline of those particular individuals that still look up to them. But I think there's been such a mass awakening that it does symbolically represent the death of the old. I don't believe she ever had any power over an awakened person anyway. So, but I believe for some who have awakened, who have stepped away from all that, that would apply to them more so than maybe those who are awakened that never gave them any power and have been very horrified and disgusted with what they've gotten away with. And that with Prince Charles becoming King Charles and the future generations, I believe that they're not going to hold as much power as they did before. Who knows what's going to happen with King Charles, but his brother Andrew was involved with the Epstein abuses of minors. He was sentenced, or he was fined millions of dollars to Virginia Roberts, or Guffrey, same thing, who was awarded. So people know that this is not all clean, but a lot who are in denial that still look up to the royals, they are still somewhat attached to it. I don't know what it means for them as far as the timelines, or if this is all going to catch up with them and they're going to see through this and awaken to it. But I believe that more of this information is going to come out. I mean, it was inevitable that Elizabeth was going to die, but like you said, when they have already passed years before, months before, they choose a particular timing to make it public.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I think, yeah, there's major significance in the way they choose the timing of things.
Well, let's put it this way. If they hadn't have done it now, there wouldn't have been a funeral in come winter, because apparently with what's going on in Europe now, they're going to have a hard time heating their homes this winter in England. And it is the taxpayers that pay for these parades that they're putting on. And I noticed, because I watched some of it, there was a heckler there. He's like, like, we're going to have a hard time heating our homes here this winter. Yeah, we got to pay for your parade here, because it was like 10-day charade that they got going on there, So if they hadn't done it right now, it wouldn't have been anything for her, because it's just people won't put up with it, And what's going to happen to Charles, I don't know exactly, but he's not very popular. I know that. Now, there's a question here from Johan. The first part of it, though, is about 9/24. Now, we just passed that date. So that was a date that was thrown out. There's a lot of dates being thrown out there, and that was one of them. And for me, I think that was just a misunderstanding there with the 24th. But what do you do?
I think sometimes when we're pre-warned about something, we can change the energy of it, because we're very powerful in our ability to steer things in a different direction if we're like forewarned. It's like somebody warning a person about a storm. Well, you can board up your windows. If it's a hurricane, you can evacuate. If you don't know about it, you might be in harm's way. So I think having the warning is great, but I'm not much into predictions or putting too much attention on something, except for maybe just being somewhat prepared. I heard all sorts of things about the 24th. People like something event happening in Denver, something that we'll never forget. That'll be memories forever, like 9/11. Well, Denver seems to still be standing strong. And there could be a date other than the 24th, because once they know that people are aware of a certain date, they might change the date, because they're major strategists, they're villains that are all about the strategy. So this person heard that China president and house arrest and Pope retired and arrest for Charles. We've heard about mass arrests and underground bases being cleared out, and I have no proof of that. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation about what the white hats are doing, but yes, there are white hats. Eisenhower actually set up the original white hats, and they do benevolent and positive operations. They're connected to the positive military, but unless we're there, how do we really know? So I am not going to just throw around predictions, because I don't really know. I can listen to people that I feel good about and speculate, but doesn't mean that things still aren't happening. Doesn't mean that maybe these arrests aren't happening. But unless I have direct proof, I'm not going to say nothing. And we do hear a lot of dates. And so, yeah, all sorts of events could happen. But also, I don't feel like we're at the mercy at these kind of predictions. I don't think it's going to be the same for anybody or everybody. So, I guess it's just sort of a wait and see. And maybe there's going to be news disclosed that we haven't heard yet about what actually did take place on the 24th. But I just feel I'm just focusing on my own life, my children, the visions of my future, and how that relates to the collective and being in service to humanity. And I'm just going to keep moving forward with that and be as prepped and more as prepared as I possibly can. And when I'm absolutely sure of something, that's when I usually share it. And I only can share what I've heard, similar to like everybody else. And I think we'll find out based in more evidence and more proof, even though proof isn't always required when it comes to certain things. But some of these bold statements, I think, need to be backed up. But I think proof that we can't prove connected to people that have been a part of different projects or programs or experiences, they make sure that you can't prove it because they will smear you, do COINTELPRO, and wipe you from records of even having a university education if they want to. So that we have to give people the benefit of the doubt that are willing to come forward and tell their story. So that's all I can really share with that. I see this question, what do I think of Antarctica? Well, I believe, it's been a Nazi base since the Second World War, and it was attempted by Admiral Byrd to be invaded, and they lost that ability to wipe out the Nazis. There was an unconditional surrender agreement in 1952, and Project Paperclip and the infiltration of our American government with the Nazi scientists and doctors, infiltration of our governments through the creation of the shadow governments and the three-letter organization starting in 1947, and it spread its tentacles all around the planet. That's where we're seeing a major activity in Australia as being a major hub where they act out a lot of the things that they want to inflict upon the world as far as mandates and tyranny and control, and also Canada. And some of that is lifting, but it doesn't mean it's gone for good, like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going on in Antarctica, except for there have been bases, and Draco Alliance connected to humans and Nazis have planted themselves there. And I do believe that there are positive forces that are trying to take them out. I have no idea what the status is on that. Michael Sala's written a book. I haven't been able to read it yet. And Brad Olson shares a lot of information about Antarctica. And it's really important to go to some of those experts that have really done the research. I haven't been able to catch up with everything because I'm spread a little bit too thin. But those would be the go-to folks. Somebody's well-researched, like Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala, Brad Olson, and some other individuals that have been in the secret space programs that were taken to places like Antarctica, and what they have to share about it would have a lot more to say than I would, except for what I've researched. But it's good to check in with those guys and also their recent intel. Yes, HARP and Hammer. I'm not sure about Hammer. I'm sure that's connected to it. Yes, they are systems affecting the weather and our environment. I don't know how much they are active, but it's obvious with the spraying of our skies. I still see the skies being sprayed. That's geoengineering, the ability to manipulate weather, to create droughts, to create superstorms. They could be using this technology in a beneficial way, but it's the darker forces have their hands on the technology, and I believe there will be a transfer where the darker people and agendas and their alliances with the negative alien agenda and the hybrid families will not have their hands on these dark technologies for much longer. And the technologies will then be used appropriately until things are healed and improved to the point where we'll start to embrace ourselves as the more advanced technology, because we are elemental beings and we're connected to the the 5 elements, earth, air, fire, water, ether. And when we're in our avatar consciousness, we can work with nature and the elements and be a little bit more co-creative and commanding over the way these elements work for us, where we can steer storms out of our way and focus on meditation and our intention and psychic awareness to be able to steer some of these storms away from populations, because we are more powerful than these dark technologies.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's got another question here. Do you think we're living in a different calendar? I mean, who knows?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I mean, the Gregorian calendar, the manipulation of the calendar, 365 days, things like daylight savings time. That's not the true calendar. It puts us sort of disconnected from the 13 moon calendar and the cycles of nature and the real numbers. And so we can connect to that calendar and be on a different calendar, but we have to remove ourselves from the calendar that we have been used to and what we've been given. So, and I think it also, has an influence on just our cycle, or how our body relates to cycles of nature, which we're very connected to when we move different signs, zodiac signs throughout the year, and move different seasons. spring, summer, autumn, winter. But again, not all locations that we live in are going to experience all 4 seasons, and that doesn't matter. It's how we acclimate to the climate, and wherever we are, we can acclimate to it. But we're still connected to the greater cycles as we are very much one with Mother Earth. A lot of these dark tactics have been put in place to remove us and divorce us and separate us from nature so that we're connected to the system and the false calendar. And ultimately, we have to be the ones that break free of that.
Yeah, we were studying a little bit about Tartaria there, and I do believe they've added on 1,000 years to our history. There's so many lies and things that have been erased from our history. And I don't know, do you know anything about Tartaria at all?
I believe
that?
it's just been buried, and it's just a
Yeah.
lost civilization that has an incredible history that we should definitely explore and get used to. I mean, we don't hear about the electrical wars. We don't hear about
Hmm.
Hyperborea, Atlantis, and Lemuria, and
Hmm.
what the region of Scotland, Ireland, and England, represent in its ancient history, as far as how that all moved, and the location of Israel, and a lot of that kind of manipulation. We're dealing with a lot of rewritten history, a lot of false history, manipulation of stargates and the planetary grid network. And a lot of these civilizations that have been buried have kept us from our true history, which also means that we don't have access to our galactic memories or memories of ancient history, which also means that
Hmm.
we don't have access to our past lives as easily. We're also dealing with certain aspects of places like Egypt and advanced civilizations that have been buried and refurbished and rebuilt, and
Hmm.
not the true history is what we're being given. There's a lot of
Hmm.
manipulation also of the deities and archetypes of the true ancient civilization of Egypt and other locations. As of the Sumerian Egyptian invasion 5,500 years ago, we lost our galactic memories, and we started to learn in science class that we have junk DNA, which is not true. We have dormant DNA connected to higher harmonic universes that we can switch on through integration of polarity, alchemical marriage within ourselves,
Hmm.
and how that links to hierogamic union and how that switches on dormant DNA. And that will also bring back our galactic memories and help us to unearth these ancient civilizations and the true records that have been buried along with our memories, and our inability to access our more advanced DNA, which we can switch on in our daily life in how we just take the right nutrition into our bodies. We free ourselves of the mind control. We can begin to clear our pineal gland and our endocrine system and all the glands that actually connect with the stargates. And when we switch on dormant DNA, we're also doing grid work, natural grid work, and we're working a lot of energy in the locations that we're living. A lot of astrocartography shows that we are linked very much to the ley lines of the particular areas we feel most drawn to. And it's
Hmm.
always kind of helpful to know if you're living on a line of energy where you're working a lot of um, energy or grid work. And if you're not living on a line of energy, it doesn't matter. But in your lifetime, you might be called to move to a more significant location. Meanwhile, wherever you are, you're there for a reason. So it's not about having to jump up and move all of a sudden because of it. You'll be guided through synchronicities in your own higher guidance and your intuition to make the changes that are necessary, as long as you can tune into it and not be plugged into television, false
Hmm.
news, and all the things that are distracting us from our divine birthright and the information and intuitive hits and epiphanies and downloads that will help guide us and protect us on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another question here. Since all elites are working for either going underground or working towards going to the space, like the Mars Elon Musk thing, are they planning on the pole shift? Are they
They have
planning on the?
planned on it. There's been different dates that they are prepping people for that. It was supposed to happen numerous times. I don't know what that's going to look like, but yeah, they have very advanced underground systems. They have condos and just incredible resources going on underground. They do recruit a select group in order to go underground or off planet. I was recruited to go off planet. They presented it as something that is to my benefit and to protect me. I don't believe that. They use a lot of people. There are breeding programs as well. I don't know if that was part of their intention with me. A lot of people are abducted, though, to be used in breeding programs, but they want to choose a select few to either protect the human genome or to use you and your abilities, which they do when they target children in schools who they test for ESP and advanced abilities that they can
Mhm.
drag into the MyLab programs. You don't have to be born into the family or the Illuminati
Mhm.
necessarily. Again, Eisenhower is not an Illuminati bloodline. A lot of people assume that because he was a president and a general,
Mhm.
but I can safely say that he's not. But yeah, they have underground bases, they have off-planet colonies. Alternatives 1, 2, and 3 were set up during the Eisenhower administration as being a somewhat benevolent set of alternatives in the event of global catastrophes. Some are, of course, natural, but a lot aren't. So they didn't know. They were kind of confused. Is this a good idea? Is this something that we should follow and address? And I think it's a mixed bag. Some is helpful and beneficial in the event that cataclysms do take place, but a lot of the engineered cataclysms that are connected to the dark agendas and their hybrid families and the elites and what plans that they have to sort of hoard all the wealth and compromise humans in sort of a Hunger Games kind of scenario, or where they flee underground and humans are left vulnerable on the surface to be either wiped out or just under some kind of control, whether that's surface population or something that they take underground. I'm not sure, but yeah, they've been there's a lot of deep underground military bases, Pine Gap, Dulce, under Denver airport, but then there's underground bases connected to being able to survive cataclysms as they attempt to wipe out the surface population and go underground until they're done with it, to then come back on the surface as a smaller number of people. But as we see, the Georgia Stones got taken down. Some believe it was a positive operation in order to warn the elite or the deep state folks that that they mean business and not to harm any more light workers. And some don't resonate with Cobra, but Cobra did give a very strong report about that in one of his newsletters. And I felt a total resonance to what he had shared. I'm not saying everything he shares is 100% or that there isn't something compromised with him, but I don't tend to feel that when I hear something and my hair stands on end and my bullshit meter doesn't go off. But I can't say 100%. I think we need to take what resonates and leave the rest. Nobody's going to be 100%. And that is just because that's a very hard thing to achieve, but it doesn't mean that the people that are sharing this sort of intel and information aren't super, super close to the truth. And maybe even like almost fully giving us the truth. But that's for each of us to discern instead of throw somebody under a bus because they're not sure about it. We have to just be very discerning, make sure our bullshit meter works, take what resonates and leave the rest. And therefore you can navigate based in your own capacity to check in with your own intuition, but also get important information to help guide you along the way without giving your power away to anybody, except for, your own unfoldment and your connection to God source and this planetary consciousness, the Mother Earth that we exist upon. And let's, work together and come together in unity and be a part of this greater conversation so that we can get to the bottom of it without the divide and conquer, without the smearing, without the throwing people under a bus or making assumptions about who's controlled opposition and who's deep state. When a lot of people just don't really know and they're just saying it without any proof. We got to be very careful of that.
I know as humans, we're very quick to judge, and assume and all that kind of stuff, right? We're all guilty of that,
Well, and I think we're just very traumatized too, because there have been a lot of individuals that people put their trust and faith in that ended up not being trustworthy. So I think it's understandable, but we just have to be careful with it. We are all guilty of that at times because we need to, but it's just something that we're all working on for sure.
I know we kind of been jaded, especially for some of us who have been in this for a while, been awake for a while now. We've seen it, so many cycles come and go, and and I just wanted to kind of leave this on a bit of a positive note, if you will. Like, all this technology is wonderful, and it can be used for so much good for humanity. It's just a matter of getting it out of the hands of the bad guys. And so when we started this year, 22, people were asking me, because I do tarot and stuff, if I could pick one card, for me, it would be the Tower card for 22. Is basically just everything is just going to crumble down. And next year, however, I do believe it's going to be the big reveal. Everybody's going to start waking up. They're going to start figuring things out. I mean, even the experimental medicine that people were taking here recently, the trial is over next year. So they have to come out with everything about it, So everything is going to be coming out. Everybody's going to see what's up. And I think there probably is going to be a bit of a civil unrest. People are going to be upset about when they realize, how much we've been duped and blah, blah, blah. For some of us, we've had 10 years, to meditate on this. Other people are getting 1 month. So it's going to be very interesting to see how next year is going to go. Like, do you have any predictions or anything for what's coming up here? Like, what anything to look out for, or anything else that you haven't maybe mentioned in any other broadcast?
Oh yeah. Well, I definitely agree about the tower card. It's very connected to
Yeah.
the planet Uranus is kind of the crumbling of old structures, the rebuilding of new ones, and then Pluto's very much about shedding what doesn't serve us, symbolically like the snake shedding its skin, or a butterfly emerging out of a cocoon, or the phoenix rising, the death,
Hmm.
rebirth, alchemy, transformation. So I just feel there's going to be more awakening. I feel people are really going to do the inner work in their own lives, align with their own truth, their higher mind, and what's really guiding us forward. As
Hmm.
this is an ascension planet, like I said, we're here to advance this human vessel. We're here to be co-creators. And the more we wake up, the more we unplug, the more we divorce ourselves from imposter energy. We cut the energetic cords. And as long as more people are doing that, it's going to, which I already feel it has, reached that tipping point where
Hmm.
that old system is just going to continue to fall away, because it's removing itself from the consciousness and the minds of individuals that attach themselves to it. I think there's going to be a mixture of very catalytic events that are very adverse, but we can upgrade in the face of adversity. And I believe that on the other side of that adversity is great change and a lot of hope and a lot of celebration. And it's like a reunion to who we truly are and what we're capable of. And I feel once we embrace that, we can mitigate the damages of what these dark weapons and bioweapons have done. And that the disclosing of advanced technologies that are in harmony with our DNA advancement and also nature will be more available to people. I don't see any of that shutting down. I see the most unbelievable supplements and herbs and products and health food stores that you can get online as well. I don't feel any of that is shut down in the peak time of censorship. That's still all available. And a lot of
Hmm.
people are figuring out how to create platforms that they can't shut down. The genius minds of a lot of people that have the tech abilities have created their own platforms, like Raytheon, um, and some of these other platforms that I could name,
Hmm.
um, that are just out there, that people, when they're censored, will jump onto, and people can find it. So
Hmm.
in the face of everything they try and take away, there's the inventive mind and the creative mind that can find a solution. So I feel
Hmm.
those breakthroughs are going to continue to happen. I think that they'll try and pull a lot of different events in order to make it really difficult on us. But again, we're way more powerful than we realize.
Hmm.
I do see, yeah, there'll probably be some troubling events, false flags, people under the mind control that have been linked to the 5G or the AI that will be doing criminal acts because they're under this level of programming, like we've seen. A lot of
Hmm.
people think they're automatically crisis actors, but a lot of people that I know have been related to those that have been taken out. One of my best friends lost 10 family members in the Texas shooting at that church. Lost 10 family members. None of these were actors or actresses. And
Wow.
I feel people jump to conclusions too easily, but I do know they hire crisis actors as well, and they pull
Hmm.
false flags. So I don't think they're going to try and quit anytime soon, but I believe their power is waning as they're exposed. People start to move away from watching the news. Their numbers and ratings are dropping, and
Hmm.
people are kind of poking a lot of fun at it, and they're not being taken seriously as much anymore. And
Hmm.
yeah, the celebrity scandals and dramas are so ridiculous. These people are complete train wrecks as far as their personal lives are concerned. So the
Hmm.
whole worship of celebrity is dying out big time. And in that,
Yeah.
we have a good and positive world to embrace and look forward to. It's just as long as people are still connecting to it and feeding it, they're going to need a breakthrough, and that trajectory for them doesn't look so great until they do have that breakthrough. And we can
Hmm.
only just pray and hope that they come around sooner rather than later. And the minute they do, they have a lot to look forward to, just like we do. But
Hmm.
as long as they stay attached to it, the dark weapons will, compromise them, because they're not free yet in their minds, which means their body isn't fully spiritualized and sovereign to the point where they can remove this foreign substance from their body. I believe when we have a spiritualized body and we're free thinkers and we remove ourselves from the mind control, our body will release these foreign substances and transmute and alchemize the dangers that they cause. That's why I say I'm a global alchemist, because really we all are. And in our own personal lives, we can turn the lead into gold. We can turn these heavy metals into gold by not allowing it to own our minds and control our minds, because that's really where the change happens, is when we break free within ourselves and we win the war on consciousness within, which is a war on our spirituality, our mental body, our emotions, and it's pitting us against each other. And the minute we step free of that, it's a beautiful future that is going to be beautiful, that we should be very hopeful about and celebrate, like I said, and claim that victory within, so that you can start having happier days, and feel reassured that the future really does look good. And there's no need to fear death. We're infinite beings. We'll continue on no matter what. The most important thing is that you free yourself from having to loop over and over again to learn these lessons. The time is now to overcome it, so that we can break free of the wheel of necessity that is here for us to overcome the trials and tribulations and the lessons, so that we can begin to break free of the net and move on to higher earth energies, and truly evolve as a human race and as human individuals, that are capable and reassured that we can advance this human vessel. And it's time for us to absolutely merge with that greater potential. And that is the good news. We are the good news when we can awaken to that. That to me is the great awakening.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right. Really, it's nothing to fear. Obviously, death is just a transition. I think most people already know that. But even moving forward, yeah, there might be some, challenges coming up here. But especially for us who are kind of like got a heads up, we know what's coming. Be prepared, both mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. We'll get through this. And as humans, we've gone through many cycles before, many cycles. So we usually land on our feet. So I have no worries about that. But yeah, but anyways, thank you so much for coming on, Laura. Like, it has been such a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, where can people find you if they want to check you out?
Yeah, well, I saw it streaming at the bottom. And yeah, it's cosmicgaia.org. And you can find me on Facebook under Laura Eisenhower. On my website, you'll see my Telegram channel. You'll also see that you can subscribe to Cosmic Gaia. You get discounted sessions, check-in calls, there's Zoom meetings, and discounted events, and all sorts of things that will benefit you, so that it's really worth $15 a month. It also helps me to continue to do the work that I do. And yeah, it's all on the website. Thank you so much, Nina, for all that you do. This is such a great show. And it's been really fun to be with you today.
Thank you so much. So yeah, you guys, if you want to check out Laura's links, all our links are actually down in the description of the video, both her website, her Facebook, and her YouTube. She is kind of on YouTube, although I think you've more or less moved over to
yeah, I don't do in-depth stuff on YouTube just because I lost my channel. Unfortunately, came back. But a lot of times I do little blips, and then I'll direct you to a free platform like Rumble or BitChute. And on the Podbean, though, there is a podcast. And those are some more in-depth interviews that you can get through the subscription. But I try and put out as much free material as possible, so you'll get the best of both. But for $50 a month, I think it's worth it. And it really helps me to continue this. And of course, I can work with your chart and help you to understand your life purpose, help you with any medical issues, as I do medical astrology. And I got great products to support you, discount codes as well. These are stuff I endorse and use myself that really have worked for me. So I don't endorse anything that hasn't worked for me that I don't use. So
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And all her links are down below, and same with mine. And I'm kind of like on Odyssey. It's kind of like my backup channel. So if this broadcast might get me kicked off YouTube, who knows? But if that's the case, I'll be on Odyssey, and Discord is another one where I usually am on. There's lots of them now, so there's no excuse, right? We all kind of need to move off of these platforms anyways, don't we? Where we're kind of like hanging on a little bit because it's hard to let go. But
I know.
But anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you all for watching, and make sure that you hit that like and share this out, because people need to hear this kind of stuff, okay? Especially as people are waking up. Some of them, might not quite be there yet. And so this might be a good video for them to see and hopefully kind of wake up a little bit. Awesome. And not only that, have a heads up of what's coming. So thank you so much, everybody. Go and check out Laura, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday for Hump Day. Bye, everybody. Bye.